Let me tell you something I have learned through my own life, through all the years of sitting across from people who have carried pain, shame, and a longing to be free. True healing begins when you are willing to see the story you've been holding on to and then let it go. The Hoffman process taught me this, that we are not the patterns we grew up with. We are not the voices that told us we weren't enough, or the wounds we inherited from our parents. Our parents, just like us, were doing the best they could with the tools they had. And yet, so many of us carry their mistakes as if they were our own. We carry their pain and call it love, when in truth, love is letting go of what no longer serves us. Forgiving your parents doesn't mean you're saying, what happened was okay. It means you're choosing to release the power those moments have over you. It means you understand that they were human, just like you, and that they were shaped by their own stories. Forgiveness is not a gift for them, it's a gift for you. And let's talk about forgiving yourself. That's often the hardest part. How many times have we looked in the mirror and judged ourselves for the things we said, the things we didn't do, the dreams we left behind? But every time you forgive yourself, you give yourself permission to begin again, to start fresh, to say, I am more than my past. I believe that each of us is here to rise above our story. And when we forgive, truly forgive, we untangle ourselves from the chains of blame and regret. That's when we can look at our parents, look at ourselves and say, I see you, I release you, and I am free. And I am free. So if you're holding on to something, if there's a voice inside that says, I can't let this go, I want you to know that you can. Not all at once, but step by step. Because forgiveness is not just about setting them free. It's about setting yourself free and stepping into the life you were always meant to live. Let me tell you something I've come to know with every fiber of my being. You are not your past patterns. You are not the mistakes that someone else made. You are not the story you were told about who you could or couldn't be. So many of us grow up carrying the weight of what we've seen and heard in our families. We internalize the words that hurt us, the actions that broke us, and we wear them like armor, thinking they define us. But here's what I want you to hear today. You're not what happened to you. You are what you choose to become. When I first began doing the deep inner work of looking at my own life, I had to face this truth. I had picked up patterns that weren't even mine to carry. I had learned fear, shame, and self-doubt not because I was born with them, but because I witnessed them. I grew up around people who were doing the best they could, but they were living in their own pain. And that pain unknowingly became part of my story. The Hoffman process showed me that these patterns are like old coats we keep wearing long after they've stopped keeping us warm. We keep them because they're familiar. We think, it's just who I am. But the truth is, those coats don't fit anymore. They never did. You see, when you come into this world, you are pure potential. You are light. You are possibility. But over time, layer after layer of other people's fears, their voices, their mistakes get piled on top of you. And somewhere along the way, you forget who you really are. You forget that deep down, you are not broken. You are not unworthy. You are not defined by the pain of your parents or the limitations of your past. I want to tell you, and I want you to really let this sink in, that the patterns you inherited are not permanent. You can unlearn them. You can unlearn them. You can choose a different way. Just because your mother or father didn't know how to show love in the way you needed doesn't mean you are unlovable. Just because you were raised in a home where anger was louder than compassion doesn't mean you have to carry that anger forward. Every single day, you have the opportunity to say, this ends with me. I choose a new story. The Hoffman process taught me something that shook me to my core. We often confuse survival strategies with who we really are. Maybe you learned to be a people pleaser because it kept the peace in your home. Maybe you learned to hide your feelings because nobody wanted to hear them. Maybe you became the strong one, never asking for help because that was the only way to make it through. And after years of living this way, you think, this is me. This is my identity. But I'm here to tell you it's not. Those patterns are just survival tools. They're not the essence of who you are. The real you is underneath all that. The real you is the child who once believed anything was possible. The real you is still there, waiting to be seen, waiting to be loved, waiting to be free. And when you recognize that you are not your past patterns, you begin to reclaim that part of yourself. I want you to take a moment right now and think about the stories you've been telling yourself. Maybe it's, I'll never succeed because nobody in my family ever did. Or I'm not good enough because I was told I'd never amount to anything. I've heard those voices too. But here's what I want you to ask yourself. Are those voices really yours or are they echoes of someone else's pain? Because you don't have to keep repeating the story that someone else wrote for you. You can pick up the pen and write your own. I've sat across from so many people who've told me, I'm stuck. This is just who I am. I can't change. And I look at them and I say, you're not stuck. You're scared. You're scared to let go of the familiar patterns because they feel safe even if they're hurting you. But once you see them for what they are, old habits, old wounds, you can start to release them. And when you release them, you make space for something new, something better, something that is aligned with the truth of who you are. This is what I want you to know. Every day, you have the power to step into the light of your own becoming. You have the power to say, I am not my past. I am not the mistakes of my parents. I am not the pain that I inherited. That realization is where freedom begins. Because once you stop identifying with the patterns, you can start living from a place of choice. You can choose love over fear. You can choose compassion over anger. It's the key. You can choose growth over limitation. And I promise you, the moment you see that you are not your patterns, everything changes. It's like pulling back a curtain and realizing the life you thought was yours was just a story someone else handed you. You get to ask, what do I really want? Who do I want to be? And that's when you start living with intention, with purpose, with freedom. So if you're sitting here thinking about all the ways you've been stuck in your life, I want you to hear me when I say this. You are not broken. You are not defined by the past. And you are not your parents' mistakes or your own failures. You are so much more. The power is in you. The choice is in you. And when you decide to release those patterns, you will see that you are capable of creating a life beyond anything you've ever imagined. Let me tell you something I've learned in my own journey. Forgiveness is freedom. And I know when I say the word of forgiveness, some of you feel your chest tighten. Some of you think, Oprah, you don't know what they did to me. You don't know the pain I carry. And you're right. I don't know every detail of your story, but I do know this. Forgiveness is not about saying what they did was okay. It's about deciding that their actions will no longer control your heart, your mind, and your life. It's about choosing your freedom over your pain. For so long, I thought forgiveness meant letting someone off the hook. I thought it meant giving them permission to hurt me again. But what I've come to know is that forgiveness is not for them. It's for you. It's the key that unlocks the cage you've been sitting in, the one built from anger, resentment, and the me questions that keep circling in your head. When you hold on to the pain someone caused you, you are the one carrying that heavy load, not them. You are the one reliving the wound every time you replay it in your mind. And that weight, it will crush you if you let it. I've met so many people who have carried grudges for years, sometimes decades. They've memorized every detail of how they were wronged as if holding on to the memory will protect them. But here's the truth. That grudge doesn't protect you. It poisons you. It steals your joy. It steals your sleep. It steals the life you're meant to live. Because while you're holding on to what happened, you can't fully step into what's waiting for you. Forgiveness is not something that happens overnight. It's a choice you make, sometimes every single day, to say, I will not let this define me anymore. It doesn't mean you forget. It doesn't mean you forget. It doesn't mean you let someone hurt you again. It means you choose to free yourself from the pain. When I think about forgiveness, I think about all the moments in my life where I had to let go. Times when people I loved disappointed me, hurt me, betrayed me. I've learned that holding on to that pain only keeps me stuck in the story of what happened. And I don't want to live in that story anymore. I want to live in the story I'm writing for myself. A story of peace, of joy, of grace. One of the most powerful lessons I've learned is this. People can only meet you at the level of their own healing. Most of the time, when someone hurts you, it's because they're carrying their own unhealed wounds. Maybe your parents didn't give you the love you deserved. Maybe they didn't have it to give. Maybe the person who hurt you was acting out of their own fear or pain. That doesn't make it right. But understanding that truth can help you soften your grip on the anger, because anger will keep you bound. And forgiveness will set you free. Free. I remember once talking to someone who told me, I'll never forgive my father for what he did. And I said, What would your life look like if you did forgive him? She started to cry because she had never even imagined that possibility. She had never imagined what it would feel like to release all the resentment she had carried since she was a child. And that's the thing. Forgiveness is not about the other person. It's about releasing the hold that pain has on you. It's about choosing to live free. Sometimes we think forgiveness is weak. We think if I forgive, I'm letting them win. But let me tell you, forgiveness is not weakness. Forgiveness is strength. It takes courage to look at someone who has hurt you and say, "You will not control my life anymore." It takes strength to let go of the anger you've been clinging to like armor and open your heart to peace. And I want to remind you of this. Forgiveness doesn't always happen with a conversation. You don't have to wait for someone to apologize in order to forgive them. Because the truth is, some people will never say they're sorry. Some people won't even acknowledge the pain they caused you. But you can still forgive. You can still say, "I release this. I release you. I release myself." I want you to know, too, that forgiveness is not just about forgiving others. It's about forgiving yourself. We all carry things we regret, words we wish we hadn't said, choices we wish we hadn't made, but carrying shame will not change the past. It will only hold you back from your future. So forgive yourself. Be gentle with yourself. Look in the mirror and say, "I was doing the best I could with what I knew then. And now that I know better, I will do better." Think about this for a moment. What would your life look like if you truly forgave? If you let go of the anger, the pain, the resentment? What would it feel like to wake up in the morning and not carry that heaviness anymore? Because that's what forgiveness does. It creates space for joy. It creates space for love. It creates space for a new story. I've seen people transform when they forgive. I've seen them walk taller, breathe deeper, and smile wider. Because forgiveness is like opening the windows in a dark, stuffy room. Suddenly, the light comes in, the air feels fresh, and you can see everything differently. That's what I want for you. I want you to know that you don't have to stay trapped in the story of your pain. You can step into the light of your freedom. So if you're holding on to something right now, a hurt, a betrayal, a wound that won't heal, I want you to ask yourself, what is this costing me? What is this pain stealing from me? And then ask, am I ready to let this go? You don't have to have all the answers. You just have to be willing to take the first step. Because once you open the door to forgiveness, even a little, the healing will start to flow. And I promise you, there is nothing more powerful than living a life where you are free, free from bitterness, free from blame, free to love fully and live boldly, and live boldly. That is what forgiveness can do. That is the gift you give yourself. I have come to believe that one of the greatest acts of healing, one of the most profound shifts we can make in our lives, comes when we truly begin to understand the humanity of our parents and, in turn, the humanity of everyone who has ever hurt us. For so many of us, the pain we carry from childhood is tied to the moments when we felt unseen, unheard, or unloved by the very people who were supposed to protect and guide us. And yet, as we grow, something powerful happens when we begin to see our parents not as mythical figures who should have been perfect, but as human beings, flawed, fragile, and doing the best they could with what they knew at the time. When I started to look at my own story through this lens, I realized something profound. My parents, like so many others, were shaped by their own pain. They were carrying wounds from their own childhoods, unhealed traumas that they never had the tools to process. And because they didn't know better, they passed some of that pain along to me. This is not an excuse. It doesn't erase the hurt or the moments where they fell short, but it does give context. It allows me to see them as people, not superheroes, not villains, just people trying to make sense of their own lives. I remember once hearing someone say, our parents were just kids who grew up. That struck me deeply. Think about it. Our mothers and fathers had their own dreams, their own fears, their own broken hearts long before we came into this world. They made mistakes. They stumbled. They tried to love us the way they understood love. And sometimes that love didn't look like what we needed. Sometimes it even hurt. But understanding their humanity doesn't mean condoning everything they did. It simply means acknowledging that they, too, were on their own journey of learning and failing and trying again. When you begin to see your parents through that lens, something begins to shift inside you. The anger softens. The bitterness starts to lose its grip. You start to understand that the criticism you endured might have come from their own self-doubt. The harsh words might have been born from the pain they were never able to heal in themselves. And while that doesn't make it okay, it does make it easier to release the hold that pain has on you. I think about the countless conversations I've had with people who have said to me, Oprah, I can't forgive my mother. I can't forgive my father. They should have done better. And I always ask, do you know their story? Because when you take the time to know someone's story, you begin to see the threads of pain and hope and hardship that wove them into who they became. You begin to see that what they gave you or failed to give you was never really about your worth. It was about their capacity, their understanding, their own journey. I've said this before and I'll say it again. Hurt people hurt people, hurt people. If your parents hurt you, it's likely because they were hurt too. Maybe they didn't have the tools to communicate love. Maybe they were raised in an environment where love was absent or conditional, and they never learned how to express it. Maybe they were carrying burdens that had nothing to do with you but spilled over into your life because they didn't know how to hold them any other way. When you realize this, you gain a new kind of freedom. You stop taking their mistakes as proof that you were unworthy or unlovable. You begin to separate who you are from what they did. You can look at them and say, I see you. I see the pain you carried. And while it hurt me, I know it wasn't all about me. That understanding doesn't erase the pain, but it gives you the power to move beyond it. I know some of you are thinking, Oprah, how can I see the humanity of someone who caused me so much pain? And I want to say this, it's not easy. It's not easy. It's not a one-time realization. It's a process. It takes time. It takes reflection. And sometimes it takes distance. But when you're ready, when you can look beyond the hurt, you may find that understanding your parents as humans, not just as a mom or a dad, opens the door to healing you didn't even know was possible. This doesn't mean you have to reconcile with them. It doesn't mean you have to have a relationship if that relationship isn't healthy. Understanding their humanity isn't about changing them. It's about changing how you carry their presence in your heart. It's about replacing anger with compassion, not for their sake, but for yours. Because compassion is lighter, it's softer. It doesn't weigh you down the way anger does. And let me tell you something else. When you understand their humanity, you begin to better understand your own. You start to see the patterns you've carried, the behaviors you've repeated, and you have a chance to break the cycle. You can say, this is where it stops. I will not pass this pain on to the next generation. That, to me, is one of the most powerful acts of love you can give. Not just to yourself, but to everyone who comes after you. I think about all the times I wanted my parents to be someone they simply couldn't be. I wanted them to give me the love and validation I craved. But the truth is, they were doing the best they could with the tools they had. And once I understood that, I stopped waiting for them to give me something they didn't have to give. I stopped expecting them to heal me. I started giving myself the love I needed. Understanding their humanity isn't about rewriting the past. It's about reclaiming your power in the present. It's about saying, I see the whole picture now. I see where you came from, and I see where I can go. That kind of understanding sets you free from the narrative of blame. It gives you permission to step into your own story, a story that is no longer defined by what they could or couldn't give you. So I invite you to take a moment and think about your parents, not just as the roles they played in your life, but as people. Who were they before you knew them? What were their dreams? What were their struggles? What pain might they have been carrying that you never saw? When you begin to ask these questions, you may find that your heart opens in ways you never expected. You may find that the anger you've held for years starts to loosen its grip. And when that happens, when you truly see them as human, you don't just free them, you free yourself. You free yourself from the expectations that they were supposed to be perfect. You free yourself from the belief that their failures define you. You step into a space of understanding, of compassion, of peace. And that, my friends, is where true healing begins. There is a moment in life when you look in the mirror and realize that the person staring back at you has been carrying not just the weight of the world, but the weight of every mistake, every regret, every time they thought they weren't enough. And in that moment, you have a choice. You can keep punishing yourself for what you did or didn't do. Or you can decide to extend to yourself the same grace, the same forgiveness that you so often try to offer to others. Let me tell you, forgiving yourself is not just important, it is essential. I know how easy it is to be hard on yourself. We replay moments in our minds over and over again, like a movie stuck on repeat. Oh, why did I say that? Why didn't I try harder? What if I had made a different choice? We torture ourselves with the what ifs and if onlys, as if punishing ourselves will somehow undo the past. But here's the truth I want you to hear today. You cannot grow if you keep living in yesterday's pain. You cannot create a beautiful tomorrow if you are chained to the mistakes of your past. There was a time in my own life when I carried so much guilt. I would wake up in the middle of the night thinking about things I could have done differently. Conversations I wish I had, opportunities I wish I had taken, moments where I had let fear hold me back. And it took me a long time to realize that every single thing I had been through, every mistake I thought was a failure, had actually been shaping me. It had been teaching me something I couldn't see at the time. When you know better, you do better. But you cannot know better if you do not first forgive yourself for what you didn't know. Forgiving yourself means looking at the version of you who made those mistakes and saying, you were doing the best you could with what you knew then. That's all any of us are ever doing. The best we can with the knowledge and tools we have at the time. When you forgive yourself, you're not saying that what you did was okay or that it didn't matter. You're saying, I refuse to let this moment define the rest of my life. I've spoken to so many people who can forgive everyone else in their lives, their parents, their friends, even strangers who have hurt them. But when it comes to themselves, they hold on tight to anger and blame. They talk to themselves in ways they would never talk to another person. They say things like, I'm so stupid, I'm a failure, I don't deserve happiness. And I always tell them, you cannot build a life of love and joy on a foundation of self-hate. You cannot bloom while you're choking yourself with regret. There is so much freedom in letting yourself off the hook, not because you're pretending your mistakes didn't happen, but because you're choosing to learn from them instead of letting them break you. Every time I've made a mistake, and I've made plenty, I've asked myself, what is this here to teach me? That question changes everything. Because when you shift from blame to learning, from shame to understanding, you start to see that even your worst moments can be stepping stones to something greater. I want you to think about the child you once were. That little boy or girl who just wanted to be loved, who was curious and full of dreams. Would you ever look at that child and say, "Oh, you're not good enough. You don't deserve forgiveness." Of course not. Not. And yet we talk to ourselves that way all the time. It's time to stop. It's time to look in the mirror and say, I love you. I forgive you. I believe in you. Forgiving yourself is not just about the past, it's about the future. Because as long as you're carrying guilt and shame, you'll keep sabotaging your own happiness. You'll keep thinking, I don't deserve good things. But let me tell you something. You do deserve them. You deserve joy. You deserve peace. You deserve love. And none of that is possible if you're dragging the weight of unforgiveness behind you. There's a reason why self-forgiveness feels so hard. It requires vulnerability. It requires you to face the parts of yourself you'd rather hide. The mistakes, the flaws, the regrets. The regrets. But when you face them, when you look them in the eye and say, you are a part of me, but you are not all of me, that's when healing begins. That's when you step into your true power. I've often said that life is always trying to teach us something. Every mistake, every failure, every heartbreak is a teacher. And when you forgive yourself, you open the door to receive that lesson fully. You stop saying, oh, why did this happen to me? And start asking, what is this trying to show me? And I promise you, when you look at your life through that lens, everything changes. I want you to know that forgiving yourself doesn't mean the pain will disappear overnight. Healing is not a straight line. It's a journey. Some days you'll feel like you've let go of the guilt completely. Other days it might creep back in. But every time you choose to forgive yourself again, you're building a new pattern. You're teaching yourself that you are worthy of grace just as much as anyone else. So I ask you, what are you holding on to that it's time to release? Is it a decision you made years ago? A relationship you stayed in too long? A dream you let slip away? Whatever it is, I want you to close your eyes and imagine setting it down. Imagine yourself saying, I did the best I could. And now I choose to move forward. Because you can. You can start again. You can rewrite your story at any moment. All it takes is the courage to forgive yourself and step into the new life waiting for you. The greatest gift you can give yourself is this: grace. Grace to make mistakes. Grace to learn. Grace to grow. And when you live from that place of grace, you will find that life opens up in ways you never imagined. Opportunities come. Love flows. Joy expands. Because you are no longer blocking your own light with the shadows of your past. So today, I invite you to say this out loud. I forgive myself. I release the past. I choose love. One choose me. Say it again and again until you start to believe it. Because once you do, you'll realize that forgiveness is not just an act of kindness. It is an act of power. It is the key to unlocking the life you were meant to live. You were meant to live. And you, my friend, are worthy of that life. There comes a moment in life when you realize that holding on to pain doesn't protect you. It doesn't heal you. It doesn't make what happened right or fair. All it does is keep you stuck in the past, replaying the hurt, carrying the heaviness like a shadow you can't escape. And what I've learned through my own life and through the countless stories people have shared with me is that love, real, deep, unconditional love, means learning to let go of that pain. For so many of us, we confuse holding on with caring. We think if I let go of the pain, it means I don't care about what happened. It means I'm saying it didn't matter. But that is not true. Letting go doesn't mean forgetting. Letting go doesn't mean what happened was okay. Letting go means saying, I will not allow this pain to define me any longer. I will not let it have power over my life. I can't tell you how many people I've met who have built their entire identity around their pain. It becomes the story they tell over and over, to others, to themselves, until they start believing that the pain is who they are. But you are not your pain. You are not your heartbreak. You are not the betrayal you experienced or the mistake someone else made. You are more. You are love itself. And love doesn't thrive in a heart weighed down with bitterness or resentment. Love grows when you create space for it. And to create that space, you have to be willing to set the pain down. I remember a conversation I had with a woman who told me she hadn't spoken to her sister in 10 years. 10 years! In 10 years! I asked her why, and she said, because I'll never forget what she said to me. And I asked her, but how is that working for you? How is carrying that anger serving your life? She paused. She started to cry. Because the truth was it wasn't serving her at all. It was keeping her lonely. It was keeping her heart closed. That's what pain does when we hold on to it. It closes us off from the love that is trying to find us. Love means choosing freedom over suffering. It means saying, I will not keep reliving the hurt. I will not keep giving my power away to what someone else did or didn't do. That is not an easy choice. It takes courage to release pain because pain feels familiar. It feels like armor. We think if I let go of this, I'll be vulnerable again. I'll get hurt again. But the truth is, holding on to pain only guarantees that you hurt yourself every single day. There was a time in my life when I held on to stories of being misunderstood, of being judged unfairly. And I carried those stories like badges of honor, thinking they made me strong. But I learned something. Real strength isn't in holding on. Real strength is in letting go. Real strength is in opening your heart, even after it's been broken. Real strength is in saying, I choose love over pain, again and again and again and again. And let me be clear. Letting go doesn't mean you have to invite the person who hurt you back into your life. It doesn't mean you have to trust them or even speak to them. Letting go is not about them. It's about you. It's about saying, I deserve peace. I deserve joy. I deserve to live my life without carrying this heavy burden. Sometimes the pain we hold on to isn't even about other people. It's about ourselves. It's the shame we carry for something we did. It's the regret over a decision we made. And we replay it, punish ourselves as if that punishment will somehow fix it. But it won't. The only way forward is through love. Through saying, I forgive myself. I release this pain because I choose to love myself enough to move forward. When you let go of pain, you make space for something greater. You make space for healing. You make space for laughter, for joy, for connection. Think about it. Have you ever walked into a room carrying a heavy bag and felt how exhausting it is? That's what holding on to pain feels like in your soul. It drains you. It weighs you down. But when you set it down, when you say, I don't need to carry this anymore, suddenly you can breathe again. Suddenly you can see the world differently. I've seen it happen over and over again. Seen it happen over and over again. Someone who has been living in anger, bitterness, resentment finally decides to let it go. And you can see the change instantly. Their face softens, their voice lightens. It's like the sun finally comes through after years of rain. That's what letting go does. That's what love does. But let me tell you, letting go isn't always a one-time thing. Sometimes you have to let go over and over again. Some days the pain creeps back in and you have to choose. Am I going to pick this up again or am I going to put it back down? And that's okay. Healing is not a straight line. It's a practice. It's a daily choice. One of my favorite things to say is, when you know better, you do better. And part of knowing better is recognizing that holding on to pain doesn't make you strong. It doesn't make you righteous. It just keeps you from living fully. True love, for yourself, for others, can only grow when you create room for it. And that means letting go of the hurt. I want you to think about this right now. What pain are you holding on to that? It's time to release. Maybe it's something someone said to you years ago. Maybe it's a relationship that ended badly. Maybe it's the guilt of a mistake you made. Whatever it is, I want you to imagine how it would feel to set it down. To say, I've carried this long enough. I'm ready to be free. Because that's what letting go gives you. Freedom. Freedom. Freedom to feel joy again. To feel joy again. Freedom to trust. Freedom to open your heart to the love that is already waiting for you. And I promise you that love is there. It's always been there. It's just been waiting for you to make space for it. So today I invite you to take a deep breath. Inhale hope. Exhale the pain you've been holding. And whisper to yourself, I choose love. I choose peace. I choose to let go. Do it for yourself. Do it because you deserve a life that is not defined by pain, but by the power of love.